Welcome. Hilda Moore of Weird is welcoming you to hear. She's going to let me read to you my notes from the field newsletter from Sunday. Last Sunday. What was last Sunday? I don't know. It's week 10. Week 10 in this astonishing year of 2022, the year we learn to listen to love. So, what is this week all about? Well, in week 10, we're beginning to hear soft, quiet, subtle whispers of the long, long story of our beautiful souls. There is, I trust you know, always a wild mystical adventure behind my prayer intensives. I don't sit here thinking of something I want to teach, which is a really good thing because you know what? I don't actually teach anything. My job, if I can even call it that, is to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you an incredible story right now, a story that stirs something in you, and then open the doors to the theater of the miraculous and wave you in. It's the theater that does the teaching, the theater that does the work, the theater that is the miracle, because the theater of the miraculous is alive. Like Hilda Moore. The best way I can describe it is that we gather in this prayer-filled, heart-directed, sacred way, and we are alchemically transformed into both individual and collective mystical containers for the sacred feminine. It's she who whispers in your ear, not Janet. She who nudges you toward healing and hope. She who infuses you with the courage and the grace and the guidance you need to finally, at last, live the life you long for. Not that plastic life all those self-help, self-improvement books told us we were supposed to want. Oh no. In the theater of the miraculous, we discover a real life, a whole life, a holy life. And so sit back. I have quite a story to tell you today. It's wild, it's magical, it's outrageous, but it's a story that still sets my heart to just dancing. I'm going to tell you the story behind the Radical Prayer Intensive with Perdita Finn that opens in a couple weeks on March 22nd. The intensive is called The Long Story of Our Souls. Now, until I started working with Perdita, I not only did not know the long story of my soul, I hadn't even thought to ask myself if I had one. But I see now that asking, what is the long story of my soul, might be the most important and certainly the most freeing question we can ask in our entire lives. If you've been reading these notes from the field for a while, you know that in November of 2012, I very reluctantly started saying the rosary again after reading Perdita Finn and Clark Strand's life-transforming, radical book, The Way of the Rose. But reading this, I realized this is not the rosary of my childhood. I was shocked and thrilled to discover that the rosary, once you strip away all the patriarchal overlay that sucks all the juice out of it, is actually an ancient and delicious and incredibly powerful goddess summoning mystical prayer practice. So as I spoke the rosary prayers as my heart wanted to say them, I could feel myself drop almost immediately into the mystical theta brainwave state, that magical threshold between worlds that I've been exploring since I stumbled upon Writing Down Your Soul 25 years ago. This April, it'll be 25 years. I was so enamored of this ancient mystical prayer practice that I hosted Perdita and Clark in the first ever Rosary Prayer Intensive in March of 2020. Did you hear that? March 2020. By the time we finished, quarantine had descended, but we all had this mystical, magical prayer practice to carry us through. That June, Perdita announced that she was going to invite a small group of just 12 people to join her very first class on working with the dead. My entire body vibrated. Me, just the biggest yes of my life. Now, I didn't have a clue what I was signing up for. I do want to confess that. But it still felt like this essential next step in my mystical life. But little did I know, I was about to take not a step, but a leap into the long story of my soul. Well, the leap began just a few weeks after Dead Class opened. It happened on August 2nd, 2020, when Rabbi Tirza Firestone sent an endorsement for the relaunch of my book, Writing Down Your Soul. I sat here, I opened it, and the first sentence is Janet Conner is a prayer artist, scholar, no one had ever called me a scholar, and 21st century witch. I was ecstatic. My agent, however, was not. She said I could not let anyone call me a witch. She said I would lose my readership. I said, oh, for heaven's sake, I have had to totally redefine prayer as a prayer artist. I'm pretty sure I can redefine witch. But she wouldn't. She just kept arguing with me. And after arguing for days, I realized she can't see me. She doesn't see me. She doesn't see the real me, the witch me, the mystic witch me. And I realized I better start working on an email to terminate our relationship. And this, I must tell you, is a very radical thing for an author to do. Well, in Dead Class, 12 days later, I still hadn't written the email. Perdita told us to watch Groundhog Day and notice that Bill Murray keeps stepping in this same icy black puddle at a curb and waking up and, surprise, it's just another February 2nd. After repeating this pattern over and over and over again, he resigns himself to living in this insane time loop and decides to do something that will make him happy. And he decides to take piano lessons. And the pretty girl kind of notices the spark of joy that music awakens in him. One day, as he's walking in the cold, he looks down and sees the puddle and steps over it. And voila, it's a new day. It's February 3rd. Perdita explained that this is the greatest movie ever made on reincarnation. Did you know that? Did you know that when you watched it? Wow, a decade ago, 2 decades ago? I didn't. She ended class leaving us with an assignment to find and name our own icy black puddle. Perdita said, if we could identify the problem we keep repeating in this lifetime, we could get clues to the problem we have been carrying lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and we could finally step over it. Doesn't that sound thrilling? I thought it sounded thrilling. I just had one minor problem. I had no idea what my puddle was. So class ended and I started to get up to turn off the computer to make dinner, and my whole body screamed, oh no, you don't. You sit down. There is no dinner for you until you finish and send that email. I sat down. I worked on the email. hour, hour and a half, and finally felt it was ready. It was clear. It was clear, but it was also as kind as I could make it. When it felt ready, I pressed send. Turned off the computer and went downstairs and made myself a little bit of a celebratory dinner. The next day, it was a Saturday, I'm sitting in my deep soul writing, reading, talking, thinking chair, opened my journal, and I said, beloved vibration of Sophia, we got to have chats. By next Friday, I have to know something about my puddle. What's my puddle? Now, before I could even finish writing the question, I burst into tears because I realized that without knowing the puddle, exploring the puddle, studying the puddle, naming the puddle, I had taken a running leap over it. My icy black puddle in this lifetime and in countless lifetimes has been allowing someone to silence me. Firing my agent ended. I mean, it just cut this long chain of being silenced and probably even silencing myself. Taking a running leap over that very old, very dark, very icy, very black puddle cleared the way. It just opened a path to an entire cascade of new mystical adventures. 48 hours later, just 48 hours later, I found myself writing in a radically different way. I'll tell you about it when the book comes out. My prayer life just exploded into depths in the mystic I didn't even know existed. I threw myself into very intense study to learn about witches and what was done to witches over thousands of years. You see all those books in the bookcase? They're all about witches. I had to get rid of all my self-help books, out the door, all my Christian mysticism out the door to make room for studying about the witches. I fell in love. I just fell in love with the greatest mystic witch of all time, Joan of Arc. And you too. Okay. And as you can see, invited Joan into my home. And of course, I redefined witch. Embracing this sacred title, I, Janet Conner, am a mystic witch, led to creating the Return of the Witches pilgrimage. There's the painting that Lori Sweet created for it last summer. And in the Return of the Witches pilgrimage, it taught me, it showed me, that's how I learned that I'm a producer and director of events in the Theater of the Miraculous. And as a producer and director in the Theater of the Miraculous, that is now leading me to this moment, this time, this place, when the curtains are opening in the Theater of the Miraculous. And Hildemore and I are inviting you to discover the long story of your soul. We open Tuesday, March 22nd, the day after the vernal equinox. We'll still be in that vernal equinox, spring, new beginnings, new growth energy. We'll meet for 4 Tuesdays at 7 o'clock Eastern. And that there is, of course, a UK watch party, but for this intensive, it's on Wednesdays, not Thursdays. Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern, 7 p. UK, 8 p. Europe, and I will always be there. Oh, and Hildemore, I'm sorry, almost left you out. Hildemore will be there, and Joan will be there. And then we'll close with, it's just going to be wild, a sacred mystical celebration of the long story of our souls on Sunday, April the 16th, which just so happens to be a full moon. Now, Perdita and I planned none of this. We just looked at the calendar and said, okay, this is when she's available. This is when I'm available. But you talk about a celestial umbrella of sacredness to explore the long story of our souls. Do follow the link below and come to my website and watch this glorious video that Perdita and I made. We had the best time. We had such a good time that Clark, who I guess was in the other room while we were recording it, when we finished, he popped his head in and he said, "You two are having too much fun." Please watch the video. And if you haven't been in an intensive with Perdita before, it gives you such a sense for this exquisite mystical being. If anybody's a mystic witch, it's Perdita Finn. Now, you might be asking yourself the question that I asked myself when Perdita said, "Okay, you have this assignment. By next Friday, come and tell us the icy black puddle." You don't know. You don't know the long story of your soul right now. And that's, in a lot of ways, it's a good thing, because it's going to be a mystical discovery, a discovery that will completely change your life. And it'll all come to pass because Perdita, you must understand, has been working with the dead for over 30 years and really honing a process. She's going to gently move us through 4-week explorations of the big questions that help us open to hear the whispers of the long story of our gorgeous souls. Oh, so exciting. So Perdita and I invite you, of course we do, but Hildemore right now would like to say that she's inviting, because she'll be here. She'll be right there the entire time, looking over my shoulder at you and really putting her juice into the theater of the miraculous. So click on the link below to learn about the intensive. You can also click on links below to register to get these notes from the field as an email if you want to get it on Sunday and not have to wait till Hildemore and I record it. You can also click to subscribe, and that little bell thing that sends you a notification that Hildemore and I have returned and have read you the next notes from the field. And there's going to be a lot more. Hildemore's keeping me up at night, teaching me what she wants to do with this channel. It will be radically altered, radically changed. She's going to have her own, what are we going to call it? Hildemore of Weird Speaks. Lots coming. So if you click on subscribe and that little notification bell, you won't miss any of the fun. Mystic Witch fun. So Hildemore and I want to close with that little blessing that she always encourages me to put at the end of the newsletter, to holding hands in the theater of the miraculous, taking a deep breath and leaping together into the breathtakingly beautiful, long, long story of our radiant, glorious, eternal soul.